Hey, this is Vitaly, or Horomancy, and welcome to another devlog of Tartarus, a miniature agnostic skirmish game. Today we're going to be discussing some of the factions from the world of Tartarus. Fingers crossed the microphone's going to work this time, right? So, you might have noticed a bit of a change of scenery. I have moved downstairs into a colder corner of a room because we're going through a very bad heat wave and both me and my computer were just melting. World of Tartarus is filled with roaming bands of cannibals, marauders. Some of them make up larger factions, some of them are making up smaller, and I highly encourage the players to make up their own stories in the world of Tartarus. However, to make the story richer, I did establish some of the main factions, some of the bigger factions that actually will move the story forward in the future editions. In the first edition of the Tartarus rulebook, you will find 6 major players. These are the A.R.K Foundation, Penitents, Brood, Masquerade, Ashen Pact, and Rustborn. Each one of the factions has their own story, their own achievements, major names, and their own goals. In the game, if you choose to join one of these factions, you will get access to this faction's passive trait that will boost your army. Along with that, you will get access to this faction's specific gear list, along with all the weapons, abilities, and equipment that only that faction can use. Lastly, you will get access to the faction thralls. Unlike conscript thralls that you make up yourself, these are staple characters of that faction. Their stats cannot be modified, and they have a very short list of weapons to choose from. However, they do come with a very, very unique ability each. And the best way to start would be to talk about the A.R.K Foundation. One of the bigger players on the board, and is considered itself the last bastion of humanity. Long before the Day of Judgment, it has established itself as a mega corporation producing everything from weaponry to medicine and even having a grasp over politicians. The history of A.R.K Foundation's foundation can be traced down to 3 wealthy families. Presumably, the very close secretaries and advisors of King Herod himself. These 3 families went on to establish the Triada Corporation, and later renamed themselves into A.R.K Foundation. They have been also responsible for the space exploration, and suspiciously, right before the anomaly has arrived into the system, A.R.K Foundation was already working on the mass bunker production. After the Day of Judgment and after all of the governments have fallen, the A.R.K Foundation was left alone to lead the surviving humankind. They do that with an iron fist, ruling over their newly established settlements, forts, and bunkers, treating humans more like cattle and slaves, working them to the bone and packing them full of sedatives so they don't question an extra time. And the humans still choose to join the Foundation with a promise that the Foundation actually knows a way to escape the pitiful situation the humanity is in. Is that promise true or not? We don't know. The Foundation is led by a council. Who's on the council or where it is unknown. However, they do communicate via sending Calypso squads, usually resembling mindless automatons dressed in black state-of-the-art exoskeletons. However, the same Calypso squads are known to be highly dangerous. They are also sent into independent settlements and colonies that need to have extra persuasion. Now to talk about the more commonly seen A.R.K Foundation soldiers. These are the faction thralls that can be found in the book and that can be used to bolster your warband. It's easy to say A.R.K Foundation has access to the best humanity has to offer. That would be weapon, equipment, ammunition, and etc. However, the new world pushes humanity to invent new, more efficient ways to repel some of the unseen dangers. And this is where the quarantine agents come in. These are the brains of the operation, the scientists and inventors of the New Age, usually deployed to gather research, to harness unusual specimens, and usually equipped with generators that can push off some of the more paranormal powers. Guarding them are line breakers. These are heavily armored soldiers, usually equipped with the most high caliber weaponry there is. I'm talking about miniguns, rocket launchers, flamers, and etc. This is the bulwark of your warband. Leading the party are the A.R.K Foundation veterans. These are hand-picked expert tacticians, strategists, and generally people that survived in the wilds for a very long time to prove themselves. The A.R.K Foundation also employs scouts. These are highly mobile jump pack experts that are able to traverse long distances and utilize hit-and-run tactics. That is it for the A.R.K for now. We will come back to them at some point, especially within the context of other factions. And next up, we've got the Rustborn, the cult of technology that has risen from the ashes of the old world and established themselves very quickly in factories, refineries, and workshops around the globe. The Rustborn are led by an enigmatic overseer. Again, no one except the followers know what the overseer is. However, most of the people outside the Rustborn circles suspect it to be an AI. The Rustborn treat their bodies as something rudimentary, something that can be replaced, something that can be enhanced upon. Thus, they utilize grafting and usually replace their limbs, organs, and everything with technological parts, making themselves into machines more than man. This grafting actually lets the followers of the Rustborn to avoid becoming an echo. I have to pause myself here and correct myself because I did even put it on my notes and I completely forgot. Rustborn do become echoes, and in fact, in the wilds of Tartarus, you can find a half-man, half-machine lumbering around, and sometimes firing experimental cannons at you, so that's kind of creepy. But the fact stands, whenever they resurrect, they do keep their metallic parts on. How or why is unknown, but there is a hint. In order to power themselves and the machines they use or the machines that are attached to them, they use blood as fuel. Now, this blood can be traded in or donated from the surviving settlements around them, or can be taken forcefully. The lowest rank in the cult of Rustborn and the novitiates are called the hemovores. They're minimally grafted and are usually equipped to gather blood with giant tanks and syringes. Ranking above the hemovore are scrap stalkers. These are already heavily modified individuals, usually treated as working bees, drones, and collectors. Protecting the factories and the other drones of the Rustborn are the iron engines. These are immensely modified individuals with a inbuilt engine and usually carrying a experimental weaponry or heavy weaponry on them. Within the cult of the Rustborn exists a sub-cult that treats electricity as something divine. The best representatives of it are coil brands. These guys undergo a very painful procedures of replacing most of their nervous system with electrical wires, so much so that they can actually produce it. The cult of Rustborn loves to dig deep and live underground, establishing big underground colonies. And one last thing I want to talk about is their main goal.
My main goal.
They have been spotted collecting around Yellowstone Park with a high amount of explosives and large drills. I'm gonna leave it at that. And the last faction I want to talk about in this video are the Penitents. If you downloaded the free Tartarus demo, link is in the description. If you didn't, you've already read a little bit about them. But in detail, Penitents acted before the Day of Judgment as a speakeasy for religious folk out there that were prosecuted by the secular society. It was a safe place for people of all religions to come down and pray, read religious texts, and generally worship their gods in secret. However, everything changed after the Day of Judgment. The first voices, as they call themselves now, the founders of the new Penitents, have discovered a woman in the Balkans. She was hidden away in a bunker, horribly mutilated and tortured. And right there, on the brink of death, she said something to them before dying and never resurrecting again. From that point on, the cult, the new Penitents, are driven by the idea that if you suffer immense pain, it will eventually drive you to the escape. The followers of the cult mutilate themselves again and again without dying in order to bring themselves closer to the divine. Some members of the cult treat the moons as gods themselves or representation of gods. The cult is still led by the first voices, the same group of people that heard whatever that woman ushered before dying. However, below them are the preachers. The preachers are a charismatic few that act as missionaries to other settlements to attract new followers. Usually, preachers are gifted. What that means is that they possess paranormal abilities. Joining them on procession are atoners. These are the novitiates of the cult. Usually their head or face is hidden behind a metal mask, usually wrapped in barbed wire or other instruments of torture. The muscle of the cult are the headsmen. These mutated individuals covered in biles and pus and overgrown muscles act as executioners for those the cult deems unworthy. Pain is the core belief of this cult. Dying, however, is frowned upon. That's why every procession is accompanied by a mourner. The mourner is a doctor, specialized in as much as curing wounds as dealing them. Alright, this is it for this video. It's getting late. I'm gonna continue on the next 3 factions in the next episode, so please stick around. Get yourself a free demo in the link below, get yourself a free mini, get yourself a free short story that I wrote, and generally like, share, subscribe, bell thing, everything, you know, the regular, the usual. Right, see ya.